Morning, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Talk. Thank you so much for your attendance, and it looks like we are getting a few more every week as we get back to normal and people are getting more comfortable being out and about. So Tuesday, we always start with a COVID update. It's our weekly update, so we're going to go directly to the boards. So this is the current information. It's the summary of the situation here in Florida. And down here at the bottom, you can see the top line. That's the COVID flu-like symptoms is on the bottom. That's the orange line. And you can see they're tracking pretty similar. One of the differences is the flu-like. You can see where that's 300 per 100,000, and the COVID is a little bit higher. But the trend lines are very similar. You don't see a spike in this number, and so as we think about entering the flu season and the colder months, and there's been some question about how the cold weather was going to affect the spread of COVID, just like we wondered whether the heat would kill COVID back in June and July. So that's yet to be determined. The heat didn't have much of an impact. I sort of suspect that the cold is not going to have much of an impact as well. If you look at the three charts up at the top, you can see the new cases. You can see that it continues to slowly increase. The death morbidity rates continue to decline, and the new positivity rates continue to go up as well. So that's the current situation in Florida. And Don, let's go to the first slide. So this is just a little bit more specific, and this is for the daily new cases. It's yesterday in Florida, it was 3,924. The daily testing rate, you can see, is pretty consistent and stable, and we're looking at it a week-over-week view. The daily positivity rate, the 7-day moving average, you can see the baseline. That's the black dotted line in the third chart. That's what experts tell us is the goal. It's set right at 5%. And so we don't want to have a positivity rate higher than 5%. And you can see that the positivity rate for the week has jumped up a little bit. Last week it was about 6.3. This week it's 7.4. So it's more than a full percentage point increase week over week, and you can see the yellow COVID line beginning to creep up from baseline. And the second slide, Don. This is the positive cases, and it goes all the way back to March 18th when we started this whole mess, and it slowly grew. It peaked. We took early measures to try to prevent it, and you can see there at the middle of April we had what we thought was a pretty big spike. Turned out not to be the spike we thought it was going to be, and then we reopened on June 1st, and immediately you saw what happened. We hit a peak of almost 12,000 new cases per day. That was in July 14th, and then it pretty steadily started to decline after that. We're now looking out over in November, and you can see that we have started a second wave. It's going to be difficult to predict. There are two things that we are able to conclude is if you go back and compare the start of the second wave with the start of the first wave, we're starting in a much worse position. There were more people infected, more people who were ill. It was at a higher positivity rate. And so all the things that you don't want to see, we see in the start of the second peak. And then the second thing is if you look at the shading, you'll notice that over on the right, that shading is a little darker. It's actually light red. That's the shading represents the week over week change. And whether it was stable, which would have been yellow, red, which is shows a week over week increase, and then it turns to a light green if you see a decline.
So this is the testing slide. This is for Pinellas County, and yesterday we tested 1,861 residents, and 177 of them were positive. That's the far right bar graph. Yesterday, that rate was 9.51. So you'll recall that at the start of this second outbreak, we were down at about 3.2, and so the positivity rate has tripled in 6 weeks. Tripled in 6 weeks. You can see the trend line down here at the bottom in red. That's the positivity rate in new cases week over week. And you can see from 10/18 to 10/24 it grew, and then from 10/24 to 10/30 it really significantly increased. Let's go over to the cases by zip code. So what you see is there is some blue in the state. That means that the caseloads are at or below benchmark. You see the darker red areas. Those are areas in the state where we are not meeting benchmark. And last week it was a little bit more blue than what it was this week. And you can see that Pinellas County and now Safety Harbor, which had been a safe zone, are a little bit higher. We'll go to the health metrics. These are our 4 tracking lines. We look at this every single week. The first chart, upper left-hand corner in the beige, that's the number of people who are presenting at hospital with influenza or flu-like illness. That continues to drop and has for 3 consecutive weeks. If you look at the people who are showing up at the hospital with COVID-like illnesses, that also continues to drop and has continued to drop for 3 consecutive weeks. So what that tells us is that the hospital capacity, both acute care, emergency room, COVID specific units, are not being overrun. We have adequate hospital to accommodate and treat the cases that are occurring. If you look at the right hand in yellow, those are the documented new cases. You can really see the difference. We were there at about 500 per 100,000. It's the 5% benchmark, and now we're on the way to tripling that from 5 to almost 1,500. The percent positive for laboratory testing is now beginning to climb as well. Now here's an interesting part of this to look at. If you look at the 2 slides on the left and you look from 9/28 to 10/12, those numbers are going up. Those are leading indicators. The 2 charts on the right are the trailing indicators. And because we know that the symptoms and the illness follows about 14 days after exposure, you would expect to see these types of increase 2 weeks later. And so sure enough, you can go over here to 10/19, 10/26, and what do you see in your trailing indicators? You see an increase in new cases and an increase in positive cases. Now if you go back and look at the 2 charts on the left that predict or that show flu and COVID hospitalizations, you see starting on 10/19, maybe 10/12, starting on 10/12, you see a decline. What do you think we might expect to see next week on the trailing indicators? That's right. We're probably going to see a decline. So that's some encouraging news.
So we are in phase 3. We are on day 57. We are on day 47. And where we are in terms of reopening is we're stalled. We have not been able to move forward, but the good news is we haven't been forced to move backwards. So we are sort of in a holding pattern in terms of reopening and what we are able to do and not able to do. Let's take a look at the specific numbers. In the United States, it was a tough day yesterday. We broke the 10 million mark, 10,110,000. It was up 135,000 cases across the United States. And we've lost nearly 240,000 Americans to COVID. In Florida, the numbers are a little bit more stable. We went from 843,000 to 847,000, so it's just shy of a 5,000 increase. In Pinellas County, it was pretty significantly improved. Our mortality in Pinellas County, more than 1 million people. Yesterday was 831 and today is 831 as well. So we didn't have any additional deaths here in Pinellas County, even though the positivity rate climbed by 230. So pretty good day in Pinellas County. Pasco County was stable in our testing. I want to talk just briefly about this. You saw where we had looked at the positivity rate and it was showing almost 9%. That was based on 1,864 tests. The previous day, they did nearly 6,000 tests and the positivity rate was 5.98. And so a great question is, why would that positivity rate jump from the mid-5s all the way up to the 9s in a single day? And part of that answer is the number of tests went down significantly, so it was a smaller sampling size. They had done nearly 6,000 the day before. Yesterday they did 1,800. So they did more than triple the amount of tests on the previous day. And so because you were working with a smaller population pool, it's not really an apples to apples comparison when you start looking at positivity rates. Where are we in terms of what our positivity rate actually is? That's why we look at that 7-day blended average, because on any given day, it's really hard to predict where we are because of the difference in the sampling size and the positivity rate of those sampling sizes. So I think we're probably somewhere, I'm expecting to see figures in the low 7 for the average this week. So I think it's going to continue to grow, but it's not going to grow like we've seen on the charts where there's a tripling in a single week. Specifically, here in our zip code, we went up 3 cases yesterday. That's a great number. And our fatalities went up 2. So we're at 546 fatalities here in our specific zip code. In terms of what we're tracking, residents and staff who have either COVID or flu-like symptoms, we have 9 people in independent living. We have 12 people in skilled nursing and no one in the assisted living. And there are no staff members that we're currently tracking. And remember, the vast majority of the residents that we are tracking are related to new residents who have just moved in and have to go into quarantine, or residents who had gone to the hospital, had a procedure, came back, and they are in quarantine. Here's the great news. In terms of individuals we are looking at for either COVID or flu-like symptoms in all product lines, in all across the campus, both residents and associates, there's not a single resident or a single staff member that is displaying any symptoms whatsoever, and it's been 3 consecutive weeks where we have not had a new report of flu or COVID-like symptoms. So, great job.
That's just, everybody else is having such a bad time, and we're doing so well in this. It's amazing.
Yeah, and so it's you. It's not us. Yes, we track it, and yes, we share back information with you, and yes, we have some ideas on what we can do to keep safe. But who's making the difference is you. You know, I look out there and I see all everybody has a mask on. I walk around the campus and see that people are maintaining good social distancing. They're wearing a mask. They're washing their hands. If they have a sickness or illness, they're reporting it early. You're having your temperatures checked. You're submitting to screening. You're following the rules and regulations set up for visitors. And as long as we have a little bit of luck, and you continue to do all the things to keep yourself safe, you're going to help keep Regency Oaks safe. And so, to Robin's point, there are other communities that are struggling with this right now, and because we have the strong support of the residents, we're doing really well. And it was interesting. Yesterday we had Beth Griggs, who is a divisional person. She's the divisional navigator, and I'll tell you what a navigator is later. But she was here, and she's brand new to her position. She's only been in it 3 or 4 weeks, and she's been visiting the community. And she was very nervous yesterday. She was in a room with 4 or 5 of us, and she had on gloves and she had on her mask, and she said, "You have people in the dining room." Yeah. And she said, "I've just come from 7 CCRCs and no one else is eating in the dining room." Yeah. You're doing housekeeping services? You have people on your buses? And so, I mean, it's amazing how well Regency Oaks has done, and you're responsible for all of it. So, great job. Okay. Just one other thing I'll report on, and that's positive and negative tests through the course of this disease. We track this. The number of residents and associates who have tested positive here at Regency Oaks is 30, and that's all the way back to March 18th. The number of residents and associates who have tested negative is almost 2,200. And so that's important, because remember how this thing is defeated is when the number of people who are tested negative and are well begin to overwhelm the number of people who are ill or have had a positive diagnosis. And when that happens, we overwhelm COVID, and we establish the herd immunity level. So we'll continue to track this. We'll continue to talk about it on Tuesdays, and just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Couple of things. Don, you want to give a pitch for ROVA?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Right here, Town Hall, we have a fantastic speaker. He's going to talk about the 5 chaplains that have won the Medal of Honor. And it's a fantastic speech. If you haven't planned on coming, I encourage you to come. It's going to be a fantastic program, very, very patriotic, and a lot of fun. So look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Also tomorrow, Sherry is going to be here in the town hall at 10 o'clock to do the annual monthly service fee increase. And she'll have a presentation to talk about what factors into that increase and what our plans are for 2021. We are going to be televising it as well, so you'll be able to catch it later during the day if you're not able to attend in person. And so that's tomorrow right here, and I said 10 o'clock, is that right? That is 10 o'clock, okay. The wine club this week, the good news and bad news is the wine club has gotten so popular that we had to break it up into 2 separate occasions. We were holding it in the Grand South lobby, and that space is not large enough to safely accommodate as many people who were showing up. So we've broken it down into a north and a south. And so the north is on Wednesday, south building is on Thursday. Both of them are in the Grand Lobby South, and I think it's 3 o'clock. Is that-
Three for north, 2:30 for south.
3 for north, 2:30 for south, and so there was that change to the schedule. All right, and that is everything I have. Any plugs for this week on the calendar? No? Okay.
Yes,
I'll open it up for questions.
I have a plug for the calendar.
Come on up.
And we are having the Flybright annual meeting by Zoom in here on Thursday at 9 o'clock in the morning. You can kind of come in like you would at any convention, hang out for a while and watch what's interesting and leave if you want to. We do have refreshments, properly socially prepared, proper social distancing, and it should be a good meeting. I encourage you to come from 9 to 12 and see what's going on. Probably the most significant thing for our chapter is Chet Jennings, who is running for the position of delegate at large. He, of course, will be, well, he's been ill, so he'll be in quarantine, and we'll see how much participation we can have. But he's looking forward to your support, and we're looking forward to recognizing him and sharing information about what's been happening with Flybright. Thank you all very much.
And Jean has a calendar update here.
On Wednesday, the 18th, here in the town hall at 10 o'clock will be our third quarterly meeting for RoRo. We have 4 of these a year, and the last one was in July, and it had to be done virtually because we weren't open for anything in here except the board members met and did a meeting. So we would encourage all of you to come to that meeting. I'm posting a flyer in the glass cases in both the north and south building today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. All right, I'm going to open it up for any questions.
There you are. All right.
I just have a quick one. They're getting close, I think, to painting some more in the front of the north building. Do those of us that park up close to the building get notified to move our cars
So, yeah, you should. And so
before the wind blows the paint over on
yeah.
them?
And so the painters, as they get ready to do a section, they give us the sections that they're going to be doing, and those specific individuals get notices. And so if we missed you, I'm sorry, but yes, you should get a message. They try to be really, really careful, and if there are cars that haven't responded, they do have tarps, and I've seen them tarp a couple of cars that either people were not home or they did not respond. So, but yes, you should get a notice.
Brent, could you please explain the Thanksgiving, rules for visitors?
Yeah. So one of the question is, would I please elaborate on what's going to happen with Thanksgiving in terms of rules for dining and whether or not your families and friends will have access. And we sort of have a plan, but one of the lessons we learned very early in our COVID response is don't make a decision until you have to make a decision. And because this is such a fluid situation and is changing day by day, sometimes hour by hour. So we have decided not to make that decision until the very last possible minute. And we believe that's probably going to be this Friday, so that you will still have time to accommodate or make changes if you included family in your celebration. So I don't have a specific answer, but I can tell you that we anticipate publishing some information about that at the very last moment on Friday afternoon. And you sort of know my approach. You're doing a great job. We're open. I'm going to try to continue open. We're going to try to find a safe way to accommodate some of the guests that usually are here with us for Thanksgiving. Ricky has a couple of really outstanding ideas. So we will give you some information, but probably don't look for that until the Friday of this week.
Next question. Not all the clocks have been changed around the campus. It happens twice a year, and twice a year I turn a work order in and it still doesn't get done.
Okay, so have you already turned in that work order?
Yes, but that was last Monday.
Okay, I'll get Darwin to pay attention to that for you.
And last one is the sewer bugs that are in the south.
The what?
Sewer bugs, that's what the
Flies.
bug man called it. Some people call them fruit flies, gnats, everything, but he called them sewer flies. And they're in people's apartments, the dining room, the grand lobby, the activity room, they're everywhere.
Is it a seasonal thing, or?
They're there.
You know, every time you sit down in the dining room, there's one that
Yeah.
comes around.
Huh, and it's,
They used to be around the salad bar.
Right.
And they would put up little vase-like thing with some kind of liquid in it, and they'd go to that and die.
okay.
The
And,
bug-
but it's everywhere, it's not just the dining room?
No, apartments.
They're in the yard.
Yeah. And the bug man suggested pouring vinegar down all the drains in your apartment, but it hasn't worked.
I think they come for the fruit.
First I've heard of it, but let me talk to Darwin and our pest control, and we'll try to publish something in Tuesday Talk in terms of what we want residents to do and how you can help us. Thank you.
Since we're talking about bugs, Savannah back door in the middle of the wing, the caterpillars are falling out of the tree that's above that entrance, and it's a mess on the sidewalk, and plus they're crawling around, and it happens every year at the same time. If the tree could be sprayed or something, it'd be wonderful, and the sidewalk cleaned.
Just a reminder that caterpillars breed butterflies. So I don't know if I'm comfortable killing them all, but I certainly think we can do a better job of sweeping them and blowing them back into the grass. And it's the S-wing?
Yes.
Perfect.
Is Toby Sugared in here? She got a story about an attacked cockroach yesterday. Well, when you see her, talk with her. It was in the health and safety meeting. It was hysterical.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I haven't done this in a while, but just a reminder, cockroach is the #1 source of all cockroach entry into the community. Is not your windows, your doors, underneath your seals. It's cardboard boxes. And so every cardboard box that comes into this community, you can just count that it has bugs in it. And so it's really important that if you get something new from Amazon and you unwrap it, take that cardboard box, please break it down, take it down to the trash room, put it in with our boxes. Do not leave it in the corridor. Do not leave it in the trash room chutes, because that is the #1 source of cockroaches in Florida.
I have not been in the activity room south or the private dining room south in the last couple of days. But last week, and I had already turned in work orders, there was no air conditioning in either room, and they were very, very hot. We had a meeting in the private dining room south, and we had to go up to the crow's nest. It was so uncomfortably hot. So if you just check and be sure that has been fixed, please.
Great question. Both the north and the south private dining rooms have been fixed. That's where we kept all of the COVID storage for the last 6 or 7 months, and so the air conditioners had not been operating for 6 or 7 months. And when we emptied them and turned on the air conditioners, neither one of them worked. What a surprise! But they both have been corrected.
The grand lobby and the activity room are the same way.
Yes, activity room was a problem last night. They loaned up a portable air conditioner for us.
That's been that way at least 3 weeks.
How about years? How about years?
So I don't know anything about the South Grand Lobby, so I'll have the guys check that. My understanding is the fourth floor activity room south, we're waiting on an air conditioner. And so that usually is 4 to 6 weeks. So that seems like that's probably in about the right time frame. There are multiple ones up there. Yeah.
I have a couple of questions. The woodwork in front of the pool, that beautiful area there, is that woodwork going to be painted or stained?
Yeah, so because that was raw wood, it has to age, and raw wood seeps. It creates a sticky substance, and until that quits seeping, you're not able to paint it. I've already paid to have it painted, but I'm just waiting for it to completely quit seeping.
What color will it be?
There's a lot of discussion around that. There are many who think we ought to stain it a gray to match the buildings, and there are others that think we ought to paint it as opposed to stain it, and that we ought to paint it the white of the trim. And so both options would match the building. I'm sort of leaning toward the white paint. And
I vote for white.
yeah, and the reason for that is a penetrating stain will not prevent stains, and it has to be done almost on an annual basis, where if you use a high quality paint, we can get 3, 4, 5 years out of it. And so that's sort of our thinking right now.
Do I need a mic?
No, I had another question.
Oh, well, ask your other one.
My other question, do you have any information for us on this Wi-Fi that's going through the building?
So I will have more information on you next week. There is a kickoff meeting this week where they're going to update us on exactly what they're doing and what all the components are and what the time frame is. So I will have more information, and I'll just make a note to be sure to update everyone on the Wi-Fi next Tuesday talk. Great question.
Brant, when we were talking about the private dining room in the south, the private dining room in the north is not able to have meetings in it because they've put a lot of extra chairs in there that they're not using, plus there's still boxes there. I know they boxed everything up supply-wise, but the boxes are piled up in there. If that could be opened up, things like not being able to get in the south private dining room, everything scheduled in the north is now moved to the south with no air, unless it has air now.
Do you know anything about that? The north, yeah. So.
I know that it should be good and right. I guess the boxes are just empty.
Yeah.
The South is putting their boxes in the room where the scooters and walkers go.
Yeah.
And the North doesn't have that.
Yeah, I had understood the north building PDR had been emptied, but I'll follow up with Ricky, see what we can find out. Great.
Brent, in the north building, the hallway ceilings have a lot of water stains on it. The maintenance used to have a spray that they covered it with, but are they not allowed to use it anymore?
No, I just think that as you are no doubt aware that we had stopped the work orders in apartments for nearly 5 months, and so you can imagine the buildup of past due work orders that occurred over the last 5 months, and so it's simply a process of prioritizing that workload until we get completely caught up. And Darwin has made the right decision that we're going to focus first on resident apartments, and we'll work about the cosmetic issues, paint touch-up, ceiling tile touch-up. That's less important than taking care of resident needs. And so I think he has the right prioritization, and he eventually will get to that, but it's not the top priority right now. I am excited to announce, if you haven't heard, Darwin is coming back with his weekly maintenance talks, and those start this Friday, and it is in right here, Grand Lobby South. It's going to be in the Grand Lobby South at 10 o'clock. So if you have specific maintenance questions or concerns, it'll be a great opportunity for you to come down and share that with Darwin, and he'll start his weekly process again.
I live in the South Building. Does anybody else have double with the in-house channel? Sometimes I can get it, or if I get it and I shut it down, I have to reboot my whole TV, so I don't know.
Any other 732 issues in the South Building? If you would, call and put in a work order, we'll come up and take a look. 732 is an in-house broadcast channel. You potentially could have a loose connection not at your apartment, but at the hub. So let us come and take a look.
Thank you.
All right, gone. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out.